Good evening, everyone. It's now 7:00 PM and welcome to the Township of Mapleton Council meeting on November 14th, 2023. If you're able, please rise for O Canada. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Councillor Oddens.
Yes. For you, Mayor, it's item 9.5.1, the planning application for Sneddle Farms Limited. Because I'm a part owner of that farm.
Thank you. Any others? Confirmation of minutes. Moved by Councillor Reed, seconded by Councillor Martin, that the minutes of the Township of Mapleton Council meeting held on October 24th, 2023 be confirmed as circulated in the agenda. Any questions? Comments? All in favor? It's carried. So any matters arising from the minutes? Move down to item number 7. We have delegation today. We're so lucky to have them here. A delegation from Mapleton Preschool. We have Steph and Amy, and you guys get to take over the podium.
Thank you so much for having us here this evening. My name is Stephanie Brenneman, and I'm the current volunteer president at Mapleton Preschool.
And I'm Amy Suggett, and I'm the fundraising committee.
Thanks so much.
Is that better?
That's great.
Okay.
We're here this evening to propose adding our organization to the list of service organizations within Mapleton Township to be exempt from costs to rent halls and boardrooms in Mapleton Township. How do we click through the presentation? Oh, thank you. So Mapleton Preschool has been part of our community for over 43 years. Its business name is Drayton Peel Maryborough Cooperative Preschool. We offer a play-based education for our 24-month to 4-year-old age demographic. We're a not-for-profit organization who offers programs for parents and young children wanting to prepare their children for their school-aged years. We offer a place for newcomers and those that have grown up in this township, a place to send their child for a licensed childcare option. We host events year over year that directly support not only the families in this community, but businesses and organizations as well. This year we have some fundraising and benefits that we routinely do each year. I'll kind of go over a few of those. So we take place in operating an affordable rate for the families that do participate in the Mapleton Preschool, while keeping in line with our not-for-profit business. We are able to provide quality educators, experiences, and education for our students thanks to fundraising efforts by our parents and volunteer board of directors. Year over year, we are actively looking to serve our community better in areas that are new and unique. Annually, we support Mapleton community members with a free Easter egg hunt for families with children 12 and under.
So what type of events do we plan to run this year, and what would benefit from this exemption? So this year, we're looking at hosting an event for the adult demographic that would that would support the preschool, other service organizations and businesses within the township of Mapleton. The event we're looking to host in early 2024 would be a Yuck Yuck comedy event that would serve as a new fundraising opportunity for the preschool and one that would offer an entertainment option for citizens of Drayton. Additionally, we would love to be able to run our annual pork chop dinner at this location, if possible in April. However, we are most interested in utilizing the location for the above for the Yuck Yuck comedy event. How would the exemption benefit us? Redirect the funds we would be paying to use boardrooms and halls within the township for betterment of our preschool. Update to our educational items, providing the ability to keep our tuition fees low for parents in the community. With the generosity of your consideration in adding us to the list of organizations exempt from rental fees of boardroom and halls in the township of Mapleton, we would be able to redirect the funds we would be paying to use boardrooms and halls within the township to directly improve and continue operations at the preschool. Any questions for us?
All right, thank you so much for the presentation.
Okay.
Questions from members of council at this time? Councillor Ottens.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yeah, my kids went to the preschool and some grandkids too. I'm wondering about the, you said that the Yuck Yucks event would, it supports the preschool, obviously, but other service organizations and businesses. So can you expand how it would help other service organizations and businesses?
So normally we offer sponsorship options for businesses to participate, but additionally, we'd be looking to team up with the Connect service organization in Drayton. They would be assisting with, I believe it's food. Food would be participating, and then using local businesses to provide food options. So the plan was to do like a charcuterie board style meal. And then we're hoping to reach out to Alamo and a couple other food businesses in town to participate in that as well. I think that's the first stages of planning. I don't know if you had any other businesses you'd reached out to in
Not
Mapleton.
yet, but there were a list of just bigger ones, like sponsor ones.
Sure.
Yeah.
We're in the early stages of planning that still. So again, like with any type of fundraising event, we usually try to keep things local. So the pork chop dinner, we use local supports for bakery, pork chops themselves, potatoes, etc.
Right, further questions? Thank you, ladies, both for coming and doing your presentation. I do have a resolution here moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Reed, that the delegation of Mapleton Preschool, Steph Brenneman and Amy Sugut be received for information. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Moving on to our next item. Item 9.1.1. Moved by Councillor Reed, second by Councillor Martin, the Township of Mapleton Council received for information Building Department Report BD 2023-11 dated November 14, 2023 regarding October month end and year to date. Questions on this report? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Next item up is 9.2.1. Moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Reed, that Township of Mapleton Council receive for information Clerk's Report 2023-20 regarding recommending a prescribed system of setting mayor and councillor remuneration now and in the future, and that the mayor and councillor's current salary be adjusted to the average amount beginning January 1st, 2024, as per the attached table of Wellington County comparators, and that the newly imposed amounts be adjusted annually by the previous calendar year's consumer price index beginning in January 2025, and further that in the future, in the calendar year immediately following a municipal election, a similar method be utilized to recalculate elected officials' remuneration, thus saving the cost of engaging a consultant. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first point I'd like to make is when we get these surveys, often from a consultant or from wherever in this industry, the first topic is usually the comparators used. In this case, we just chose to use the Wellington County comparators. An argument could be made to use North Perth or the township of Woolwich, since they're our neighbors and closer to us than, say, in Erin. But that was a decision we made. The second point is these figures are a moving target. So since we did the report, the figures have already moved. For example, that number 4 there, Minto, where it says total remuneration, 152,000. It's now at 206 in Minto, taking into account OMERS, health benefits, payroll surcharges, such as CPP. So these figures they're old, seemingly weeks after you put them together. And that's about all I have to add.
Thank you. Questions then from council on this report? Councilor Reid?
Through you, Mayor. I saw that in the significance of comparing structure, like number of counselors and things, and inclusion of benefits and OMERS. Are we looking to introduce those things in this report, or are we just stating that those are included in other townships?
Thank you for that. This report was meant to be a budget report, simple budget report, but Municipal Act says that every 4 years, council must have a serious look at the remuneration bylaw, and probably the sooner the better. And that would be a time to look at per diems, meeting reimbursements, that sort of thing, including OMERS and health benefits. And through the mayor and the CAO, we could do that early next year if that was council's desire.
Other questions, comments? Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the motivation. Excuse me, my voice is a little croaky tonight. For this report, I would suggest that I am most comfortable leaving the grid where it is and just increasing it by CPI like we've done similarly in the past. We normally just bump it up, just whatever the staff wage increase is for the year. We do the same for council and carry on that way. So I understand the suggestion, but I don't think now's the time. We're trying to negotiate a budget at a reasonable levy increase. So I'm comfortable probably exactly where it is.
Thank you. Other comments? Questions? Nothing further? All right, so I did read the resolution. We've heard from the clerk and from council members, so I'll call the question. All in favor of this report? Opposed? Sorry, a favor? Opposed? Thank you, that's carried. Moving on to the next one, item 9.2.2. This is moved by Councilor Reid, second by Councilor Martin, that CAO's report CL 2023-22 dated November 14th with regards to the compensation policy be received for information, and that staff that council direct staff of which option they would like to see moving forward in 2024 and onward.
Through your worship. So a few meetings ago, there was some discussion about what the benchmark would be. And there was a motion to remove August from there. And to come back with some options. So some of the options that we've obviously went to different townships to county level as well and see what everybody else does. And so I guess what we've uncovered is Option one is we take the average of the 12 months, beginning from August of the previous year. And it spits out a number, obviously. And based on the last few years, there's some municipalities that have made some changes and added some wording. And in this option one and option two, well, all options for that matter, would be a maximum of 4%. And then whatever the difference is, but if the CPI number is different or higher, we would take the difference and put it onto the next year. Excuse me. Option two is, I guess, a little bit against the motion, but keep it at August, but with the same added capped out at 4%. And if it's higher, we move on to the next year and add it to that. And we even phoned some municipalities outside of our territory, and there's a few that just mirror exactly what the county does. And the county has, you know, a few things that they use: consumer price index, general provincial minimum wage, annual economic adjustments from other markets and things. So there's a variety of points that they use. But there are some municipalities that just choose to go with their upper tier. So of those three options, I guess, is kind of what everybody in our county is, along with others just outside of our county, are doing. And the other thing that we added to this, just to be added into the policy, is that we only complete remuneration study in the first 6 months of the new term of council, just to keep it somewhat consistent within the policy.
Thank you. So we have some work to do here. We have to look at these three options that's been provided by staff. Choose one or blend some, but come up with the new policy that staff will follow in the future. So, questions, comment? Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. I'm leaning towards option one. I like the averaging out rather than sticking with just 1 month, because it does, you know, adjust for the fact that a month that we happen to choose could have a spike for who knows what reason. And that it tops it at 4%. I like that too.
Anybody else? Councillor Martin? Thoughts?
I think, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, you know, when the notice of motion went through, like, the plan was to leave this particular policy vague intentionally to provide flexibility. And now we're back again to creating a policy that's very pinpoint with a number. The rationale I had at the time for the notice of motion was simply to leave it vague so that the director of finance and the CAO could make a proposal when budget time came and justify it based on whatever rationale, whether that's averaging it out or, you know, you can see, I don't disagree with Councillor Otten's option one, but, you know, you can see well, we've seen in the last 5 years, a big change and a big swing in CPI from month to month even. So I'd be perfectly comfortable leaving the policy as it currently is, and then we revisit that specific increase each budget year. Actually, we just did a 3-year budget, so like we'd be kind of reviewing it kind of one year budget and 1 3-year budget, right? That would kind of be my thoughts on that.
So just to get this straight, to continue down the path of what we currently have and not choose any of these options. Is that what you're leaning towards? Going towards what we already have, minus the August number, letting staff come out to council and saying, this is what we think is the number we need to be at. That's what your suggestion is. Okay. Anybody else? Sure. Councillor Reid.
Looking at the three options presented, I agree with Counselor Ottens that at least looking at the average gives a target number. And I also agree that capping it at 4% is reasonable. So I think right now I'd be leaning probably towards option one.
Okay. Any other comments? I have kind of leaning towards what it's a tough one for all of us. When you look at looking over a 12-month period, you're going to end up with a larger number quite often than what you have, and then you have the cap at the 4%. Councillor Martin makes a point of being flexible, let staff come back out with a number at the time and present that to council, and council can make a decision at that time. So I can see merits to both of them. Absolutely. Well, we have two that are looking at option number one. And I'm going to look at option number one as well. Being that we can get that number and cap it at 4%. Anybody else have anything else further to add? Go ahead.
I appreciate the Councillor Martin's concept of just leaving it as is, but being vague is sort of difficult because you're asking staff to make recommendations about their own wage increases, whereas I feel like we were elected to provide guidance on these sorts of things. So providing this very specific guideline is a lot easier for staff to come back to us with suggestions than having some open-ended we'll see policy. This way they know exactly where it's going, exactly how much it'll be, and exactly what to recommend. So that's why I like defined parameters in things rather than vague ones. So I guess I'm the opposite of Councillor Martin in this case.
Anything further? Okay, so I'm going to read the resolution we have right now and add in the option. So this is moved by Councillor Reid and seconded by Councillor Martin that CEO's report CL 2023-22 dated November 14 with regards to the compensation policy we received for information, and that the Township Mapleton Council directs the CEO and treasurer to adjust the 2023 wage grid by, sorry, Mr. Clerk, because it has a number in it, but we're not doing a number. We're doing the percentage over the average wage or the average increase of the 12 months, and then no more than 4%. Right? So hang on, bear with me, council. I rewrite this. We'll just do this, then the follow-up is that Township Mapleton Council directs the CEO and treasurer to adjust the 2024 wage grid using option number one as of January 1st, 2024 to form Schedule B 2024 wage grid and the 2024-2026 operating budget bylaw. I was originally moved by Councillor Reed, and seconded by Councillor Martin. Councillor Martin, you still want to second that? Okay. So is everyone clear on the motion then? Choosing option number one. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Together, yeah. Moving on to item 9.3.1. 9.3.1 is moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Reed, that the Township of Mapleton Council receive information, the 2023 Annual Emergency Management Program Report dated November 14, 2023, regarding the status of the township's annual emergency management program, and that Council of the Township of Mapleton accepts the annual status report of the township's emergency management program for 2023. And for that, Township of Mapleton Council received for information, the Township of Mapleton Emergency Management Program Committee draft meeting minutes of March 22nd, 2023. And if council has any questions of this, we do have Nathan here with us to answer any questions from the county. Any questions or comments then on this report? Pretty clear. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Nathan. Said so much, you know. Moving on to item number 9.4.1. This is moved by Councillor Reed, second by Councillor Martin. The Township of Mapleton Council received finance report FIN 2023-23 dated November 14, 2023 regarding applications for tile loan Form 6. And further, the Township of Mapleton Council approved the application for tile loan Form 6 for property located at Maryborough, Concession 8, Part Lot 15, former Township of Maryborough, in the amount of $50,000, provided that the funds are available from the province. Any questions or comments from council? That one's sinking a little bit. Ask again, any questions or comments? All in favor? It's carried. Next up is 9.4.2, moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Reed. That Township of Mapleton Council received information finance report FIN 2023-24 regarding the Q3 2023 operating budget variance. I'm going to let our finance director have a comment on this, if he has one.
Through you, your worship, I'm quite prepared to answer any questions. It's pretty routine by this point.
Look at those great comments we got. Any questions then? All in favor? It's carried. Getting off easy, John. Maybe this one will get you. 9.4.3 moved by Councillor Reed, second by Councillor Martin. The Township of Mapleton Council received information budget book 2024-2026 third draft, including project sheets as presented by Treasurer John Morrison. And that council discuss and consider tonight any additions, alterations, cutbacks, and mitigations to be put forth in the form of resolutions of council. And I have a second one here as well. That's moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Reed. The Township Mapleton Council received information budget book 2024-26 fourth draft. So we'll talk about that after. I know we got the fourth draft sent to us by email, but we'll deal with 9.4.3. And that council discuss and consider tonight any additions, alterations, cutbacks, and mitigations to be put forth in the form of resolutions of council. Council, we'll open it up to you at this point. We had our meeting last week. Very good meeting for 2.5, 3 hours, going over the budget. Anything at this point that you would like to discuss, alter, remove? Counselor Ottens?
I'm not sure where this falls in, but given the preschool's request, is that a budgetary item? Like how does that fall in? Because we just accepted it. What's the
Accepted
next
it for
step?
information. It's
Right.
not a budgetary item per se. It would take a motion from someone at council to make that motion for council to put that forth. So if we want to put that motion on the floor for next council meeting, we can do that, but it's not a budgetary item at this point. Anything, Councillor Reed? You have any more questions, comments? I know you had quite a bit the other day. I think we went through about a book of paper of yours. You're good? Okay. Councillor Martin? You're good? All right. Again, Mr. Morrison, nothing for you. All right, so the motion is read. All those in favor? It's carried. I'm gonna just read the other one again, that Township Mapleton Council received for information budget book 2024-2026 fourth draft without the project sheets as distributed by Treasurer Morrison by email directly to councilors this morning. That was moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Reed. I don't think we need any questions or comments. It's just receiving this that we got it. All in favor? It's carried. Now we have a slew. Thank you for the planning department for this. All these next reports. Consent applications. The first one is up 9.5.1 consent application moved by Councillor Ottens, second by Councillor Reed. Sorry. All right, 9.5.1 moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Reed. That the Council of the Township of Mapleton support consent application B 69/23 as presented on lands described as part lots 4 and 5, concessions 7 and 8 with the following conditions. That the owner satisfy all the requirements of the local municipality, financial and otherwise, for the proper and orderly development of the subject lands, including but not limited to outstanding taxes. That payment be made of a fee of $355 or whatever that fee is applicable at the time of clearance under the fees and charges bylaw for a letter of clearance. That a parkland dedication fee be paid as provided for in the Planning Act. That servicing can be accommodated on the severed lands to the satisfaction of the Township of Mapleton. That driveway access to retained severed lands can be provided or upgraded to the satisfaction of the Township of Mapleton. That a copy of the deposited reference plan be submitted to the township. And further, that council authorizes the planning and development manager to file with the secretary treasurer of the Planning and Land Division Committee at the County of Wellington a letter of clearance of these conditions on completion of the same. Questions on this one? Any questions? Councillor Martin?
Just theoretically speaking, it looks like there's on two of the parcels, the dwellings have been severed off. And normally when there's a surplus farm dwelling application, is that not the case on these? I'm just wondering how it works to put buildings on these three separate parcels again in the future.
We'll go to planner Linda Redmond.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. These aren't surplus farm building severances, and they didn't have, those lots that are there were severed years ago. So this is just they're creating new farm parcels. So they can build houses and farm buildings on them.
Right? Anything further? I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Next one up. Moved by Councillor Reed, second by Councillor Ottens. You're back in the game. Councillor Ottens. That the Township Council of the Township of Mapleton support consent application B 70/23 as presented on lands described as part lots 16 and 17, concession 10 Plan Bolton's Plan Drayton Part Lots 1 to 4 with the following conditions: that the owner satisfy all the requirements of the local municipality, financial and otherwise, for the proper and orderly development of the subject lands, including but not limited to outstanding taxes. That payment be made of a fee of $355 for a letter of clearance. That a copy of the deposit reference plan be submitted to the township. That driveway access to the retained severed lands can be provided or upgraded to the satisfaction of the township of Mapleton. And further, that council authorizes the planning and development manager to file with the secretary treasurer of the planning and land division committee at the county of Wellington a letter of clearance of these conditions on completion of the same. Any questions? Comments? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Next one up, 9.5.3, moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Reed, that the council of the township of Mapleton support consent application B 73/23 and B 74/23 as presented on lands described as lots 88, 114, 118, part lots 89 to 92, lots 138 to 144, 164 to 170, plan Rosse Maryborough with the following conditions: that the owner satisfy all the requirements of the local municipality, financial and otherwise, for the proper and orderly development of the subject lands, including but not limited to the outstanding taxes. That payment be made of a fee of $355 for letter of clearance. That a parkland dedication fee be paid for each new parcel as provided in the Planning Act. That driveway access to the severed lands can be provided or upgraded to the satisfaction of the county of Wellington. That servicing can be accommodated on the severed and retained lands to the satisfaction of the township of Mapleton. That a copy of the deposit reference plan be submitted to the township. And further, that council authorizes the planning and development manager to file with the secretary treasurer of the planning and land division committee at the county of Wellington a letter of clearance of these conditions on completion of the same. Questions, comments? And seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Carried. Two more to go. Item 9.5.4, moved by Councillor Reed, seconded by Councillor Ottens, that the council of the township of Mapleton support consent application B 77/23 as presented on the lands described as part lots 7 and 8, concession 12, Maryborough, with the following conditions: that the owner satisfy all the requirements of the local municipality, financial and otherwise, for the proper and orderly development of the subject lands, including but not limited to outstanding taxes. That payment be made of a fee of $355 for letter of clearance. That a parkland dedication fee be paid for each new parcel as provided for in the Planning Act. That servicing can be accommodated on the severed and retained lands to the satisfaction of Township of Mapleton. That driveway access to the retained severed lands can be accommodated, upgraded, and provided to the satisfaction of Township of Mapleton. That a copy of the deposit reference plan be submitted to the township. And further, that council authorizes the planning and development manager to file with the secretary treasurer of the planning and land division committee at the county of Wellington the letter of clearance of these conditions on completion of the same. Questions, comments? Call the question. All in favor? And this last one, moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Reed, that the council of the township of Mapleton support consent application B 85/23 as presented on lands described as part lot 9, concession 1 and 2 Peel, with the following conditions: that the owner satisfy all the requirements of the local municipality, financial and otherwise, for the proper and orderly development of the subject lands, including but not limited to outstanding taxes. That payment be made of a fee of $355 for a letter of clearance. That the applicant provides a municipal drain reapportionment or mutual agreement as determined by the drainage superintendent as per the applicable the Township of Mapleton's fee and charges by law. That a copy of the deposit reference plan be submitted to the township. And further, that council authorizes the planning and development manager to file with the secretary treasurer of the planning and land division committee at the county of Wellington the letter of clearance of these conditions on completion of the same. Any questions or comments on this last one? All in favor? Now, where was I? Bear with me, I'll move over about 10 pages and Oh, I think I'm down to Public Works report here. 9.6.1, moved by Council Reed, second by Councillor Ottens, the Township of Mapleton Council received Public Works Report PW 2023-15 dated November 14, 2023 regarding bridge closure procedure. Mr. Jamie Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor Davison, Council. Through a request from a counselor, I reached out to GM Blue Plan they do our bridge condition assessments every 2 years. So I reached out to them just to see what the process was and, if council was considering to close a bridge because of budgetary constraints. Now, I provided a document in the report. It's probably explains it a little bit simpler because this is a new process and finding from them over the last couple of years. This is just materialized with the heritage portion of it. So it's just not as simple as we're going to close a bridge. There is a municipal EA portion that needs to be completed as part of the whole thing. The share, the cultural, so all that stuff needs to be done, and then it just works your way through the whole attachment that I gave you on what is required if they find this, if they find the next thing, and they find the next thing. So it's all there from information. I am not by any means an expert in this, being it's fairly new. It was actually new to me. They were teaching me a couple new things while we were going through it. As far as cost, I reached out and asked, what would be the cost of performing this? And it just depends on how much work's involved in doing this, how much research they need to do. I think the one structure we talked about was a steel, they did that specific one. It's a steel truss bridge with a wooden deck. So there may be some, and it's older than 40 years. It may have some heritage value. I know, Mapleton, I think probably in 2018 or 20, you did the bowstring, structure 25, and it's still a load restriction. So that I know that one fell into some heritage, information. So this is just high level stuff. I just want to make council aware that it's not just as simple as passing a bylaw and saying we're closing it. There's a bit of process. And also in the report, you'll see that they do recommend having public consultation on these. I've found in other municipalities I've worked in that, you may have a farmer who has land on both sides of the structure. Fire department may not have the same response time to that structure. So those are all the things that kind of take into account in the public process. So there's a lot of things that can be done. Not saying the structures cannot be closed. There are probably some structures that make sense and some that wouldn't, but that would be a council decision moving forward. So if that's something council would like me to look into, I can definitely move forward to the process. And in the report, they suggest you move fairly quick because it is a fairly lengthy process to go through.
Thank you. Questions, comments, and Councillor Ottens.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. The whole environmental assessment and cultural heritage thing would have to be done anyways, right? Because it's in the budget to basically take this bridge down and replace it. So all this would have to happen anyways, right?
Through Mayor Davison, I think there is a heritage depending on the age. I honestly don't know if it has to be done to every single structure. Sorry, I can't answer that, but definitely there would be some form of EA process that would need to be done, but I cannot say that for sure.
Follow up.
Yeah, because the focus of this whole request was this one specific bridge, and it is the one you mentioned that you said is steel girder and it's wooden. Wow, okay. So it probably is very old, so it probably does need all this done. So this would all be happening regardless of whether we closed it or replaced it. So that the cost and the hassle of this whole part is gonna happen regardless, I'm thinking.
Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, through Mayor Davison, I'm thinking 31A, B, and C. It just depends on what you're actually going to do to the structure. Like if you're just going to, close the bridge and not tear it down, it doesn't really affect the heritage because we're not removing it. So that was 31C. 31B, I think, was you're going to completely demolish the bridge structure and replace it with the new one. And I think 31A was just doing some minor restoration stuff to it to bring it back up. I'm thinking that's what they were, but yeah, there'd be definitely some steps in there.
Thank you. Councillor Ottens, correct me if I'm wrong, the whole crux of this was for staff to come back with what bridges would fall under this and then give council the choice. Is that what you're looking for? Is it-
Well, and again. Sorry, because this bridge is in our budget for partially next year and the year after, and it's $1.5 million is kind of the catalyst for the whole request. I realize it's a procedure. I'm just wondering what happens, how this happens, how you make the whole decision.
Right, Mr. Morgan?
So, the structures we have for replacement, there is that pre-money. So, previous year before we go to do the construction, we do all the pre-work, the engineering and all that. And if council wishes at that point, when we've budgeted for the smaller amount, we have our studies done, I could bring a report back to council with other options. That's always a choice. There's always a bit of a two-step process there. We have year 1, year 2 on most of the replacements. So definitely I could bring those back to council. So in 2024, I think we have engineering on it. I don't have my budget in front of me. That could be part of the process. I'll ask them to look at that as part of the engineering, and council can make a choice at that time, not to proceed in 2025 with the replacement.
I think that was the
And-
intent of the motion that was put forward, that would give you the opportunity to come back and say, okay, this is a bridge that services 1 farm, 2 farms, whatever it might be. And give council the option whether to go ahead with the $1.5 million project or to close the bridge or whatever the options are. So that would be something that, from what I understand from the last council meeting, that's what the council was looking for. Councilor Reid, do you concur with that? Yeah, okay. So yes, do that pre-work, but then for structures that may be not used as much, but we're just doing it to bring it back. Go ahead.
Yeah, and to you, Mayor Davison, and we do have the bridge condition studies for 2024. So that will also help council, because it's been a couple of years since that bridge has been evaluated and there was some deterioration on that particular one. So that'll come back to council, and that will open up the discussion too.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Other questions on this report? All right, then I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 9.6.2. Moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Reid, that Township of Mapleton Council receive Public Works Report PW 2023-14 dated November 14, 2023, regarding the Drayton Kinsman donation of 15 new accessible picnic tables. They did a great job, Jamie, and I know you have those tables. Where are those tables now, or are they in storage for next year?
Chief Mayor Davison, we have some of them down at the on Wood Street. I don't think any of them have been set out yet, but they will be definitely set out next year. We have some that need to be replaced, and part of the paint program that council was involved with program Amy had put together with the public school. Yeah, and we just want to really thank these community groups and put a plug out there for them. They're really nice, as you've indicated, and this whole thing started standing in line for a coffee at Alamode is how the whole thing got started, and yeah, it just went from there. So it's great to have community groups.
We're certainly appreciative of the community groups and what they do, and the Kinsman making these accessible picnic tables. It's fantastic, and really appreciate the work they put into that. Any comments, questions from council members? All in favor? Carried. Item number 11, correspondence, no correspondence for council's direction. We have some correspondence for council information, GRCA consultation notification, looks like Roma, and one from the Ministry of Finance. Anybody that wishes to speak to any of those? Okay, we'll move on then. Down to item number 15, which is other business. Anybody have anything to bring up under other business? All right, so under other business, we do have the notice of motion that I put forward at the last council meeting. I'll read that for council. We'll have the discussion. Moved by myself, a second by Councillor Reed, that Township Mapleton Council implement a 2% dedicated levy starting in 2024. In addition to the final year levy to put towards the Mapleton Fire Department's financial needs. And further that this levy continues for, at minimum, the next 3 years and not to be discontinued until canceled by council. That's the motion on the floor. I'll just start that off with for council then. I think we can all agree, council, that our volunteer firefighters do an incredible service for our community. And we are very grateful for their dedication. It is not a service that just anyone can do. It takes special people, and we have a good crew of special people that are doing this job. And these special people are well trained. We've heard that many times over here at council, how they have to be trained just like a full-time firefighter is. And they also require the same type of equipment that a full-time firefighter would need. The fire master plan that we had was presented to council earlier this year, and that plan indicated that we had some challenges and then some opportunities that we as council must address. And we have had the opportunity with this budget that to make sure that our firefighters are up to date. We've talked about it earlier, up to date with some replacement of the protective gear to respond to any situation they're sent to. And what was also shown in the fire master plan and what's been put in the 10-year plan is a replacement of 4 vehicles between 2027 and 2031. 911,000 in 2031 is 1 vehicle, 805,000 in 2029, another vehicle, and in 2027 we have 2 vehicles totaling $1.9 million. To help pay for the 2027 vehicles, a debenture of $1 million is in our budget currently. And the 10-year capital requirement for the fire department is $3.98 million. By adding the 2% levy each year for the next 3 years, on top of what is currently proposed, we could reduce the large tax levy bump in 2027, potentially reduce, and we would eliminate the $1 million debenture that is proposed in 2027. So after discussion with staff, that's why I put this motion on the floor for discussion, as we want to make sure that we are trying to eliminate in 2027 a big hit, as well as if we eliminate the debenture of $1 million, that's a 20-year debenture over $1 million for $1 million over that time is roughly between $450,000 would be the interest over that time. So not only eliminate the debenture, we also eliminate that interest of roughly $450,000. That is why I put the motion on the floor here, so we can actually start putting money aside for the fire department's capital requirements. Open it up for questions and further comments from other members of council. Anyone? Councilor Reed.
Through you, Mayor. My question is more process because I'm unaware of how these levies, if we've had them in the past or not. Does it need to be listed like a levy, or can it be listed, or would it be listed as something on taxes like a line item instead? So we're very clear that it's for this, and when it reaches this amount, it's done.
So Mr. Morrison, correct me if I'm wrong, it will show up on the tax bill saying the amount for fire department capital requirements. Ms. Morrison, is that correct?
Through you, your worship, that's correct. It would be a separate line item on the tax bill. It would be proportioned by your assessment, your relative share of that levy for each citizen.
Oh, what?
Sorry, just to be clear. So each person would have a different amount on their taxes that would be dedicated towards that levy.
Correct.
just as any taxes that we impose are, or any levies we impose. Any other questions, comments? Councilor Martin?
So I'm assuming you know what I think about dedicated tax levies. I think that's been pretty clear historically. To be blunt, I don't think we need it. I think what's also pretty clear is if you look at our financial flexibility, sustainability and vulnerability numbers, I think we're in a position where we could have flexibility internally to either just do the debenture when we need it or perhaps start funding that particular reserve a little more aggressively. I think the inadequacies of funding that particular or planning within the fire department is responsibility that we need to take some onus on. And I don't know that simply parceling that 2% out on the general taxpayer to make up for this is something that I'm really interested in, to be honest. It puts our levy up at a number that's uncomfortable for me. I think that the levy as it sits right now is, arguably reasonable. It's kind of inflationary and we've got good underlying numbers already as far as with the financial pillars that we have. And I think that, we could perhaps do, shuffle some reserve funding around to make sure that reserve fund is adequately funded for when we need it.
Thank you for your comments. I expected such. Oh, we've had this discussion many times, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to put this forward, because previous council and even this council last year, we talked about a dedicated levy, but we never had a motion on the floor to actually discuss. So I wanted to make sure we had it on the table, and this is one that I think has value to it, being that we can eliminate $1 million debenture and the interest that goes with that. Any other comments, questions before I call the vote? Councillor Ottens?
Yeah, I'm torn. I see both sides. I mean, in the end, there's only one taxpayer. It's dipping into one fund, right? So the people are giving from the left hand or the right, regardless of how you put it out there. A dedicated levy for the fire department is a lot more palatable to people, I suppose, than one for roads. So I can see how that can be sold. I wonder, any surplus we have in the budget, we're talking about a surplus currently. I wonder if we have any of that, we could dedicate that to fire department reserves automatically, just to build that up. And I'm kind of leaning towards what Councillor Martin says about how the levy is just at a decent rate now, and things do change over from year to year. So I don't know. We'll see when the vote comes.
I do hear you. I think we're all comfortable where the levy is right now. And my only point is that as you said, we have one taxpayer, they still have to pay for these vehicles and the equipment for the fire department at some point in time. And whether that's through a debenture and we pay that over time, or we put away a little bit of money now and continue that on and pay for this stuff over a period of time now, and removing the $1 million debenture and removing the interest on top of that is what I'm looking at. And that's kind of where I'm at. And Mr. Morrison, there was Councillor Ottens brought up about extra funding that we currently have, and Councillor Martin brought up about the reserves that we have, and we're sitting pretty good. Would you like to comment on that?
Through you, your worship, it's gratifying to know that people are actually listening to me sometimes. With respect to, I'll start with Councillor Otten's question. This is a 3-year budget, so if we have any surplus in 24, 25, or 26, we can't allocate it to the fire department till the end of that period of time. If we are if we do realize 160,000 by this year end, then that could be delegated to the fire department if you wish, okay? With respect to the flexibility, I think the corporation can take on more debt. I'm not going to comment whether that's desirable or not, but it definitely could without changing without us going into a conversation with the ministry that perhaps we're assuming too much debt. So we shouldn't be afraid of debt. On the other hand, it would be better to have the cash in hand and avoid having to make another $1 million debenture. With respect to other reserves, I think that the message that I've been trying to convey in the last workshops of last week and in our special meeting is that the asset management program that's being introduced it's being introduced by the province, and we're working on it quite a bit. And what we're going to present next year is we're going to have a serious financial problem in about 2027 with all our asset base, and that the reserves itself may not be enough to pay for the things that we are required to do just to maintain the level of service that we currently wish to maintain. So, this is a politically easier dedicated levy for just one area that would take pressure off our entire capital program.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Go ahead.
So how much would 2% generate each year?
Mr. Morrison?
That's around 189,000.
Go ahead.
So we would still have to borrow in 2027 then?
Mr. Morrison?
No, you wouldn't, could avoid the debt. It's timing of when the reserves are coming in and the money that's required. There is some money in the reserves now, right? So it's all about timing of when you're spending the money. Do you have enough money when you need to spend it?
Further questions? Comments? Okay, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Sorry, yes, I will. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Reed, that the Township of Mapleton Council implement a 2% dedicated levy starting in 2024, in addition to the final year levy to put towards the Mapleton Fire Department's financial needs. And further that this levy continues for at minimum the next 3 years and not to be discontinued until canceled by council. So council after the next 3 years can cancel this levy. Any other questions, Councillor Martin?
Can we just record this vote, please?
Sure. Mr. Clerk, you got a recorded vote on this? I'll turn it over to the clerk. Unless there's other questions at this point or comments?
Start with Councillor Altman's.
Yay.
Nay.
Nay.
Thank you, council, for that conversation. Is there any other business? Moved by Councillor Reed.
So, Mr. Mayor, just for clarity, was that carried or defeated?
Defeated. It was 2 nays and 2 yeas. My apologies. We have no closed session today. Item number 17 is the confirmation bylaw. Moved by Council Reed, second by Councilor Ottens, that bylaw number 2023-060 being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of the council of the corporation of the township of Mapleton be hereby read a first, second, and third time, signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the corporate seal. All in favor? That's carried. And we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.